So my name is John Lay. I am with North Carolina Emergency Management, Risk Management Office. We are responsible for the Lidar, and I'm going to be talking today about the most current QL2, QL1 Lidar data collection that we just finished. I am going to jump around because I just finished the visual QC on this last week, and I am so excited because I've been doing it for 4 years. And that's all I've been doing. So now I get to move on to more exciting stuff. All right, but anyway, so let's go way back to the beginning. So we were the first state to do a statewide collection back in 2001 to 2005. At the time, Lidar was bleeding edge. There were no specifications. There were no standards. So we basically just kind of made it up as we went along. The original Lidar was a 3-meter post spacing. So very large distance between the points, and it served us well for 10 years. But during those 10 years, sensors changed, better data became available, we decided we were going to do it, go with the newer stuff. So we began this project in, when did we begin it? 2014, and we were going to do it in 5 phases. We flew phases 1 and 2 together because USGS was helping us. They did phase 1. We collected phase 2. That was followed by phase 3 that was collected by 2 different contractors. And about that time, phase 4, the Geiger sensor became available for commercial use. This is high density Lidar data. Why did we do it? Because it was new and exciting. Because we always do new and exciting.
High density.
It was high density. But what the Lidar has actually done for us since collecting it the first time around, which was when the first time around we collected it, we only collected bare earth. So one of the goals for the new collection was, I lost the back of this. To be able to use it for more things than just land surface, we could collect building footprints from it, the classified data. The original Lidar data, basically what it allowed us to do was to find first floor elevations. We do have a road network for all the coastal counties that were done with a terrestrial Lidar. Off of a mobile truck. The data is available. And another thing that the Lidar is used for is every 4 years the orthophotography, the Ortho Image Project uses it as a base. All right, linear versus Geiger. So linear is what it says. The laser sweeps back and forth and you go in a straight line. With the Geiger sensor, the laser actually spins. So you're collecting data from multiple angles. You get multiple hits on the same object. One of the benefits of this is that you eliminate some of the ghosting or the shadows that you would get with linear, exactly. Sensor, because it's coming at all angles instead of just a single angle. One of the disadvantages of it, though, is that now you have, particularly in buildings and trees, you have Lidar's points that are stacked one on top of each other, so you get this kind of false density. The Geiger collection started in 2016. We teamed with NCDOT to do this. And they created their own special QC process. It was basically an automated process where they ran a bunch of scripts to check for building points with a delta Z greater than 32 feet in a 5-foot cell. Basically what this was looking for is, particularly with the Geiger data, we have a lot of problem with planar surfaces above buildings because it captures the trees and the leaves and all the vegetation that's above the trees. And so it looks like there's a building on top of a building. And what this check did was try to eliminate that issue. They looked for proximity points. along hydro lines. The road points is what they were checking, what they were most interested in. They did another one for bridges and checked that buildings were over 20 feet from another structure. All right. Geiger Lidar. Because it is a new technology, ASPRS doesn't really have standards set up for it. So we did have some exemptions that we had to take because of the change in technology. With Geiger Lidar, there is no return value. Essentially, it's all a single return. It's all first return. So we had to explain how, because of the greater density, we didn't actually need the first return data. We used a lot of the USGS specifications as guidelines, but then kind of diverged a little bit for those. And one of the other things that we had an issue with was 1.4, specifically because 1.4 is not all software is updated to use the 1.4 specification yet. So software issues became a bit of a problem. And these are just some of the high intensity examples. So this is the high density examples. This is the intensity image off of, is this 30 point or is this 8 point? This is 8 point. So this is the 8 point image. And you can see with the higher density, we've got paint stripes. We have a lot of detail on the top of the building, and this is just intensity. Another intensity image. This is an interesting one. Okay, so this is the baseball field. You see this round mound here? This actually shows up in the LiDAR, but it is only, I can't read that. How tall is it?
75.
3/10 of a foot.
Oh, the elevation.
What? The elevation 75. Yeah. So this is one of the things when we first got the LiDAR, we were looking at it, it was like, why are there all these mounds under all these trees? Well, what is all this extra stuff here? So we'd never seen it before. Pine needles, yeah, exactly. It was all the landscaping that was under the vegetation, particularly in landscaped areas. Now this is not 8 point. I believe this is 30 point. This is, when we collected the LiDAR, the Geiger LiDAR, we actually collected it at 30 point, but we had delivered at 8 point. 30 point, and I'll get to this in a minute, but it's a lot of data. It's a lot more data than most people can use. But it is incredible at providing detail, as you can see from this image. One of the other things that I need to go into about, well, the North Carolina LiDAR is, because we started this in 2014, at 2014 we were still at LAS version 1.2. At that time, there were no classifications there was not a classification level for roads or bridges, so we made them up. We decided that we were going to use 13 for roads and 14 for bridges. Well, then along comes LAS version 1.3, and ASPRS decided that they were going to make class 13 wire low something and then 14 wire something else. So a very common question, or complaint, not a complaint really, it was a question in panic phone calls is, why is there a hole where the road should be? It's because they're looking at the ground and they don't have class 13 and 14 turned on, because I think that's wire, whatever it is. So remember, class 13 is roads, class 14 is bridges. but it will show up in your software as wire guard and wire conductor. File size limitations. This is another thing you need to know if you're going to use this data. Phase 1 covered 12,000 square miles with 12,000 tiles, 5,000 by 5,000 tiles. The legacy Lidar, which was the 2,000 3 meter post spacing, was a 10,000 by 10,000 tile. So the counties that make the entirety of phase 1 was 47 gig. When we moved into the QL2 LiDAR data for phase 1 and phase 2, we are now looking at 8 points per square meter. No, I'm sorry, 2 points per square meter for phases 1 through 3. Our file size for those counties is now 3 terabytes. And that holds true for phases 1 through 3. Basically, we quadrupled the size at a minimum. And then we got to phase 4. And because there was so much data per tile, we had to quarter them again. So we went from a 400 scale tile to a 200 scale tile. Now we're at a 100 scale tile, which is 2,500 by 2,500. And that didn't reduce the single individual file size at all. So a single file size for the QL2 data, which is 5,000 by 5,000 square tile, is average about 200 to 500 meg. A single tile for the QL1 data, which is phases 4 and 5, is again anywhere between 250 and 500 meg for a quarter of the size. What that means is that we now have I actually don't know how I'm reading this. 10 terabytes. Oh, there we are. Yeah. Essentially, phases 1 through 3 will fit on 14 terabytes worth of data. Phase 4 takes 24 terabytes just for 19 counties. Phase 5 is an additional 36 terabytes for 21 counties. A lot of data. Yeah, exactly. So we have in our office, it takes, we need 45, 50 terabytes worth of storage space just to house the mass points. So remember that when you call and request data for the entire state. We cannot email it. So for the Geiger deliverables, I can't actually read this. The data acquisition, basically what we're going to deliver, what we have asked to be delivered to us that we can actually distribute is going to be, it's essentially a 1 meter DEM, which is in feet, so it's 3.125 foot DEM, a 10-foot DEM, a 20-foot DEM. We have intensity imagery, we do have hydro break lines, and then we have the LAS data. A single county is about 2 terabytes. If you want anything accounting from phase 4 or phase 5. We are providing metadata, and all of this is available from our office. You can download most of it from the spatial data download site. Phase 5 will be coming shortly, probably by the end of the month, end of March, not this month. So as I was saying, this data is big, really big. We purchased almost a 500 terabytes server so that we could house this data while we were doing QCs. And all the derivatives for the data, and to host all the derivatives as well. We actually had to buy supercomputers for us to QC on. The data is so large that it really taxes the computer. And because we quadrupled the number of tiles per county, the QC was taking a lot longer to do. So when previously it was taking phases 1 through 3, it was taking probably about 10 minutes per tile to visually QC scan through the entire tile. It was now taking about a half an hour to scan through a single tile because the data was so dense that the computer needed time to refresh on the screen. And like I said, I just finished this last week, Friday, as a matter of fact, after doing it for 4 years. What?
What are you doing next week?
Next week, I am going on vacation. Yes, I am going on vacation. So, now we have all this data. We decided that, we needed more. Since we collected it at 30 points per square meter, we decided that we were going to actually go back and process the 30 point per square meter to see what kind of derivatives we could get out of it. Basically, this is more for utilities and buy-in because we can collect transmission lines. We can collect. You can actually curb and gutter. You can add the manhole covers. You see all this data from the 30 points per square meter. This is 30 point per square meter with the intensity on it. Yeah. Another image. You can individually count every single car in the parking lot. So it's asset mapping. I don't know if there we go. So this is a building. I don't know what this is. This is unclassified. So we've classified it here. You can see the whatever's on top of that roof there. We've got pipes and transmission lines, stories of buildings. There's a lot you can do with the 30 points per square meter. This will not be available for download on our website. If you want it, you're going to have to bring us a very large drive, and we will ship that off and have somebody else do it for us. We are not really sure how we're going to store this data right now. We have 21 counties that are in process, being processed right now. We had to buy a petabyte server to store it on. But it should be fascinating. All right, with that, I know I rushed through this and was very incoherent. Do you have any questions for me? I know a lot of people are really interested in this data. Yes?
Is the DEMs, those are still processed, like the ones that are available for download? Like
Yeah.
3-foot ones beyond? Those
Yeah, so for phases, so the DEMs are kind of a mishmash. The original requirement from USGS, phases 1 and 2, was they wanted a 5-foot DEM. So that was the smallest that we made. With phase 3, they decided that they wanted a 1 meter DEM. So we created a 3.125 and a 5 and a 10 and a 20. When we got to phase 4, we were like, if we have a 3.12, a 3-foot DEM, why do we need a 5-foot DEM? So we eliminated the 5-foot DEM for phases 4 and 5. So the two constants are 10-foot and 20-foot. The 5 and the 3-foot are a little mix match.
Is it still from the 8 points and not from the...
All right, so yes, we're not creating new DEMs for the 30 point. Yes?
So what was your budget? And where did your funding come from? Not from me.
I'm not the money guy.
Yeah, I'll answer. So the floodplain mapping program was where the original funding came from, and with the new collection, it was actually done in coordination with several state agencies as well as the General Assembly. So the floodplain mapping program at NCDOT had the first hit, General Assembly helped pay for it, and USGS actually paid into a large portion. So as he said, the first and second phase were done in the same year. USGS covered phase one, we covered phase two. We each paid into each other's programs, so the funding has kind of been throughout. It's about $20 million is what it took to actually collect all that.
And then you start over?
The time frame for LiDAR is not like imagery. Normally, we start considering it about 10 years later.
Yeah, we actually did a study a year prior. And we're looking at change detection. And we were actually able to do that because there were several counties that within the state that had flown their own LiDAR in 2007. So we had a 2001 reference, we had a 2007 reference, and then we had sometimes in some cases we had additional references. And we could actually look at change detection. So Craven, Carteret, one of those sea counties on the coast, they were actually one of the counties that did a 2007 collection. And when we did a change analysis for them, it was less than 0.02% of change, whereas Mecklenburg County was closer to 15%. Yes?
Another question, just some information for you.
Sure.
The hard drive companies announced 18 terabyte drives.
Did they?
Yeah, just so you guys might know about that.
Well, that will cover phase 1 through 3. You will need 2 of those for phase 4. Any other questions? Yes?
Will you distribute the classified LiDAR?
Yes. So the LiDAR is fully classified, and it is available on our spatial data download site. You just Google spatial data download if you find it. But you can do a clip and ship for a small area. We actually designed the spatial data download site for contractors and engineers who only needed a small parcel area instead of a whole tile because of the size of the data. Or you can fill out a large data request and send us a hard drive, and we'll fill it out. We'll load it up and send it back to you. Yes.
Are there any vector data sets that have been derived from this that you guys have?
We do have we have the hydro lines that are available. That would be a special request, so you just do a large data request and ask for them, and we can usually put those on an FTP, and you can just pull them from there. I don't know if
We're working on the buildings.
we're working on the buildings, so that is my task now that I've finished QCing, is extracting buildings from the LiDAR data and updating our building layer that we currently have.
And we're working on it.
And we're working on contours, because everybody wants contours. Any other questions? Yes?
Do you have any bigger companies or groups that are requesting this data? Like, will Google take these data and do something?
Yeah.
With it?
Yes. I mean, I haven't heard that Google has asked for it yet, but we do have companies asking for significant amount of data. I mean, Duke University just asked me for the entire state a couple of weeks ago. What? Actually, they asked me for all but 5% of the tiles of the state, which I said, no, you're getting them all. I'm not pulling out 5% of the tiles for you. Yes, sir.
Was there a post-hurricane data acquisition like this in that area to do change detection?
Post-hurricane. So there is some no flu of the coast. We haven't really done anything with it yet, but it is available, and it's only the Outer Banks, though.
I think that's going to be on NOAA's website.
It should be on NOAA's website.
Up to Cape Hatteras is up there now, and the other stuff should be available in the next few weeks.
I feel like you and I should just stand up and So the other piece is,
I agree.
FEMA did find MIT actually did a test, but none of their data is classified. So you actually have to have permission from MIT to get that data set to do a change detection. It did a much larger coverage area. It is still not the whole area. It's only, it's still only really the Outer Banks area and some inland portions. But that is a much more difficult data set to work with, simply because it doesn't have the processing done on it. They haven't gone as far down the path, but that data is available.
Any more hands before I turn it over to somebody else?
You can tell them all.
Well, if I can get the mouse to work, that'd be awesome. Thank you.